So we've made a commitment to our church to keep them updated on the transition plan. Most people know my story. I felt like God was telling me, make a time when you're going to exit the senior pastor role, go into other areas of ministry maybe, and let our good, fresh, young leadership take over. And then the compelling notion that that should be after 38 years here on January 1st of 2020. Well, that date's coming up. And I'm really excited about what God has in store for Crossroads and just the consistency of vision that a good transition plan brings. But I think what I want to know, and I think what people might want to know is, what is this doing to you, Matt? You're a young leader in the church. You've proven yourself over and over again at Crossroads. You've had leadership recognition from other leaders and churches and organizations throughout the state and country, and you becoming the senior pastor of this church. What kind of things are going on in your heart in relationship to that?
Yeah, I think when I think about that, back in the 90s, there was this movie, Armageddon, and Owen Wilson's character in that, right before they're about to blast off to the moon to save Earth, says, I don't know if I'm 98% scared and 2% excited, or 98% excited and 2% scared, but either way, I'm ready to go. And I think that that's probably the way that I feel in this, that there are moments when I think of Crossroads being a 3,000 person church and the 30-some staff that we have involved, and I look at that as being the senior leader, that there's some moments that are just daunting in that, being responsible for that many people at some level. And yet in those moments, what kind of calms my heart is realizing that Jesus really is the senior pastor of this church, and that his promise and commitment is that he's going to build this church. And that really my call, as any of our calls in ministry life or even just in vocational life, is to be faithful. And so, my commitment to this church moving forward is just simply faithfulness, to work hard, and to be about what this church has always been about, which is Jesus. And it's in those moments that I get excited, because I think that God has some really good stuff ahead for Crossroads. I think that this transition has been God ordained from the beginning. And as we move further into this, just the way that God has continually kind of reminded me in my own life that I am ready for this.
Okay.
Even though there are those moments that I question that, but I continue to get encouragement that way. And then just to be able to see what God has in store for us in the future, and what does Crossroads look like in the next 5 or 10 years. And as I think about that, I get really excited for the way that God's going to work and the way that people are going to be brought to him and ultimately saved, ultimately because of our faithfulness here.
Yeah, his leadership in our church has been kind of built on from Roland, Taylor, to me, and now to you, the third pastor in a church that's nearing 60 years old. That's uncanny, unheard of in many respects, and yet we believe it's a calling to do transition differently. So by January 1st of 2020, I'll pass on the leadership, God willing, to you of senior leadership. Likely I'll do some other ministry, and yet we know that those transitions done well can really serve the mission of God through the local church on earth really, really well in ways that aren't always done real well in other transition plans. So I'm excited about it. So what's immediately ahead now?
Yeah, I think immediately, kind of next steps is at the next business meeting, which is end of October. You and I are going to do a kind of a roundtable discussion with whoever shows up at our Thornton campus to just discuss specifically this last year of transition. And then in January of 19, at that business meeting, will be the vote, where people will get the opportunity, if you're a member here at Crossroads, to vote on the next senior pastor, and my name will be there. And so that'll be a vote to go forward of whether this transition plan is accepted by the people or not.
Yeah, and that's a smart move. I think somebody came to us and said, why don't we do the vote earlier rather than wait until the end of 19 in case it doesn't go? It's brilliant. So we're doing it in January of 2019. So it's exciting.
And then if that vote goes the way we think it will, where I take on that role as senior pastor, I think 2019, where I'll be preaching a lot more and much more in the senior leadership role, where you probably are taking a step back and making sure I don't mess it up.
Let's just have my cane ready to
That's right.
pull you up. So, well, it's good. I'm really glad God has blessed us, and it's going to be an exciting year.
Yeah, it will.
All right.
It will.